Today's guest is another dynamo that I'm looking forward to finding out all about and how she does life. Rosemary Gattuso has been in alternate dispute resolution for over 15 years with a specialisation in family mediation and restorative justice practices, having originally studied mediation at Harvard University. As a family mediator, she's helped many families to separate and re-establish in a respectful and child-focused way. This role placed her in a unique position to observe, to learn and reflect through a strengths-based lens, while further fostering her interest in self-study as a childhood trauma, emerging discoveries about the brain and the mind. So the study of childhood trauma. And Rosemary has also written a book, and it's called It's Not You, It's Me, A Chronic Overthinker's Guide to Self-Reflection. So I am super keen to find out all about Rosemary. Welcome.
Thanks, Catherine. It's
How are you
lovely to be
going?
here.
Yeah, how are you going? How are you?
I'm well,
Oh,
Sydney.
let's just stop. Audio's just done some really weird stuff.
Okay.
Um,
I'll do my phone.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause there, Nikki, and we'll start again. Today's guest is another dynamo that I'm looking forward to finding out all about and how she does life. Rosemary Gattuso has been in alternative... Blah, blah, blah. I should. Oh, sorry, Nikki. I'm going to start again. Today's guest is another dynamo, and I'm looking forward to finding out all about her and how she does life. Rosemary Gattuso has been in alternate dispute resolution for over 15 years with a specialisation in family mediation and restorative justice practices, having originally studied mediation at Harvard University. As a family mediator, she's helped many families to separate and re-establish in a respectful and child-focused way. This role placed her in a unique position to observe, learn and reflect through a strengths-based lens, while further discovering her interest in self-study of childhood trauma, emerging discoveries about the brain and the mind. And Rosemary has also written a book called It's Not You, It's About Me, A Chronic Overthinker's Guide to Self-Reflection. I'm so looking forward to finding out about that. Hi, Rosemary. How are you?
Yes, good, Catherine. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to this chat. There's so much for us to cover. Where are you coming to us from today? Where do you live?
From Sydney. I'm in
Sydney. Have you always lived there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Grew up in Sydney?
Yeah, different parts, but yeah, generally just in Sydney.
Yeah. And what was growing up like for you?
Well,
that's a big question.
Yes, it is. I'm thinking, where do I start? Well, I grew up in southwestern Sydney, sort of large Italian family in the area, which were predominantly migrants. So, everyone spoke a different language and had different sort of lifestyles, but we were all the same, sort of different, in that sense. So it was always quite colourful, but that was just the norm.
Yeah. Did you have a big family?
I've got three brothers.
And where do you come in?
So I'm the second eldest. So only daughter.
Only daughter. I'm the only daughter too. I'm the youngest of two older brothers.
Wow.
Yeah. So only daughter was, it was good. But I was kind of dragged up as one of the boys anyway.
I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't realise until people ask you, what's it like being the only girl? I'm like, well, it's just normal.
Yeah. Do you know what I loved? I loved it. I was younger. I was 4 years younger than my next brother. And I was just a bit of a nuisance. And all the kids in the neighbourhood seemed to be boys as well. And I think I was just a bit of a nuisance there. And I think one day I remember, because they played football, we were a football family, and we went and travelled and grew up in country New South Wales, and we travelled somewhere and the boys were playing footy and I was just on the sideline, and this guy said, "We're a shorter player, mate. Do you want to come and play with us?" And I went, oh, he thinks I am a boy. So I think that's when I started to go, oh, I might need to be a little bit more feminine here. Did you have lots of other family here, cousins or?
Yeah, I've got quite a few extended cousins here and there,
Yeah,
from mum and dad's side, and some overseas. So
yeah.
What
stage of life are you at? Where are you at in life now?
So at the moment, I'm kind of at a crossroads actually, where I'm about to, launch my book and move into what that looks like and what that means, and there seem to be opportunities coming up that are kind of related to my book, and so I'm now sort of thinking, oh, okay, I've been a mediator for so long, and it was my goal to be a mediator for so long and a family mediator, and now I'm looking at actually that's might not be my main role anymore. So it's quite
interesting. Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think that would be really interesting to explore, being at a crossroads. And a lot of the women that I work with are at some sort of crossroads as well. So it's not necessarily a career crossroads, but they're at life crossroads about, oh, what do I want next? So let's unpack that. So a family mediator, what's a family mediator?
So, well, I mean, the technical term, but it's, just a bit overcomplicated, is a family dispute resolution practitioner. But I just say family mediator because that's sure. Sort of easier.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a family mediator is someone who separating parents or couples go to help sort of make arrangements about who does what when, who, to separate, how they're going to separate essentially, and it's instead of going to court. Okay. So that's the key issue, because there were sort of massive build-up in the family courts, and so mediators were set up and family relationship centres were set up all over Australia as a way for originally just parents, because it was only to do with children, but now it's even just couples separating, to sort of provide more, I say, a human-friendly way to separate, because a mediator does not judge. Yeah, it's an independent third party. Whereas when you go to court, it's about proving who's right and who's wrong and evidence-based. So it's a completely different outlook, and something that for many people they don't experience or don't even know what mediation is, because it's something that you don't know unless you've had that experience or someone who has. So is it like
I'm familiar with the mediation through a work context. When there's been conflict in the workplace, they've brought in mediators to help manage that conflict in the workplace. So you specialise in families and relationships, I guess. It's not just families with children, but people in relationships.
Yes.
To like that conscious uncoupling, Gwyneth, and is that?
Yes, that's right.
Through that process and doing it so you don't have to get to court, to be able to, a bit more, like you said, that bit more human-centric, family, individual-centric approach.
And the parties have more control over over the outcome generally.
Yeah.
Which
so
means
input into it. So they've got input into it. Yeah.
And if you've had input into it, it's more likely to be something that you can work with and something that you will be able to uphold, as opposed to, someone who doesn't know your family, doesn't know your dynamics, doesn't know your situation, saying, I think you should do this.
Yes, and making decisions on your behalf. So this is, So how did you get into that? Well, that's interesting, because even when I was at school, I always wanted to be a family solicitor or family lawyer. And so I pursued that. And then once I really started studying law, I realised that actually it wasn't for me. Okay.
But I didn't really know what else to do. So I just continued.
That's a really common thing I hear a lot. It's like, I don't know what to do, don't really love what I'm doing, but I'll keep doing it anyway.
Yes. But I thought, well, if I have to do law, then I'll still be a family. I'll go in the area of family.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you, in New South Wales, once you finish the studying component, then there's a practical component. And in the practical component, I was introduced to mediation and alternative dispute resolution, because that was a compulsory part that most people hated. Most of the other students hated it. And for me, it was the first time that I was like, oh, this is something I can do. I want to do this. And so from then on, I was like, that's it. What do I have to do to not just become a mediator, but become a family mediator?
You have to have studied, do you have to be a lawyer to be a mediator?
You don't have to.
No, but
No,
it would be
you don't.
beneficial for you though, wouldn't it? Like that family law or
Well,
not?
in one sense, yes, but at the same time, if I have clients that come to me and ask me for the legal side, I don't give it to them. I don't necessarily know it anyway, because I've been sort of out of the loop, and I would refer them to a solicitor, because I really want, aim to keep my role limited to really facilitating a conversation that focus, if they have children, the focus is on what's the best interest of the children, rather than giving an opinion or taking sides, or you should do this, or
so it's really the process of the mediation. It's a good understanding of law, but it's not really what you're there for. You're about the facilitated discussion and input. When you studied at Harvard, was that while you were being a lawyer, or is that where you pursued mediation as well?
Yeah, that's where I studied mediation and negotiation there, because they've got quite a really good program on negotiation there.
Yeah.
And so that was while I say that I studied law and I knew it wasn't for me, but then I also did a Master of Law, and while I was doing that, but all my subjects were dispute resolution, mediation, restorative justice, hardly any, maybe the minimum legal subjects to actually be called a Master of Law.
Yeah, cool.
So
what was
I thought that was relevant at the time,
Yeah. What was it like studying at Harvard? Were you there in person, or was that through?
No, I was there in person. And it was at the time where Mark Zuckerberg was starting up Facebook.
Ooh la la! Was he your buddy?
No, not really. And I kind of lived very close to, but I didn't know. It's a big place, and I was mainly with international students, because this course got, called for a lot of international students attended this.
How long were you there for? How long?
It was one semester.
Yeah. Wow, what an experience.
About 6 months.
What an experience. Yeah. Can I, because I want to talk to you about your book as well and those crossroads that you're at, can I ask off the top of your head some tips for negotiating? Because one of the things I do find, like I work in the corporate space, I do corporate coaching, and I help people when they're navigating conflicts as well, but people have asked me to be a mediator. That's not my gig. And what are some tips about negotiating that just off the top of your head that would help us in just everyday life?
Yeah, I think being prepared is a good one. Like if you know that you have an important meeting, a mediation or negotiation ahead, preparation is key. And I mean, that's part of my role as a mediator. The first appointment I have is an individual appointment with each client in private, and that's about preparing. And it's, looking at what the goals are, what's the worst case scenario, best case scenario, what's realistic, what would happen if, and then I guess the second point is, so the first point is being prepared. The second point is get legal advice. Yeah, right. Know your especially if it's, that a major sort of a significant negotiation, and quite important, because it helps to know what would happen if there's no agreement. Yes. And that might actually change what you say yes or no to. Yeah, that's cool. That's good. That's really good. So preparation, legal advice if you need that. And I think also do whatever you can to support your, I'm going to say nervous system, but I guess that's really what I mean in that process, because it's really hard to think clearly, and also in that moment, if you're like super anxious and worried. And if you need to take a break, take a break. If you need to clear your morning or afternoon in preparation so that you don't have other things to worry about, or exercise, whatever kind of works for you to help, minimize that anxiety or worry about, that uncertainty, what's going to happen.
That's really good. Because I could imagine it would be very stressful for people going through that process and, wanting the outcome, and depending on, what the experience that they've had, I could imagine that would be very stressful. And so looking after yourself in the process is really important.
It is. And it's also part of my role is to try and be aware of what's happening with the parties, so that if they need a break, I'll call it. So, and even it's, so that they don't necessarily have to say, I need a break.
That you're on top of that.
That's
you're
also part
keeping,
of also part of my role. But sometimes I can miss it. So, and that's fine. That's where the process has that flexibility to say, if you want to talk in private, just let me know.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So being at the crossroads, that you've been doing that for quite some time now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've written a book called It's Not You, It's Me, and it's a chronic overthinker's guide to self-reflection. How did that book come about? Like, is that based on the work that you've done, or is that based on you? Are they tied together, or are they
it's probably all of the above.
Yeah, okay.
But it really started as a result of my observations of how people manage adversity. So, looking at my work and the trends that I noticed, and then also, I guess, when you see how other people manage adversity and crisis, it kind of helps you look at, what am I doing? And thinking, I'm doing that, or I'm not, and I guess for me, the way that I worked, it helped me to kind of, I say label, but maybe label's not the best word, name what I was seeing.
Yes.
And that's really how it started. And I also come from a strengths-based approach. So that really helped me. And using the strengths-based approach, one sort of idea is that you can either focus on what's wrong in a situation or what's strong in a situation. So that is really how I started to name what I was seeing in mediation room under those sort of two categories. It didn't initially start like that, but, I was saying, one client might be sort of saying that they're not respected. They don't feel respected, and therefore there'd be a discussion on respect, what it looks like, and potentially that would go in the agreement. And so that made me think, okay, if one party is being critical of the other party, respect is missing. So they're your two options, criticism or respect. So I kind of labeled things in opposites, if that makes sense. Yeah, sure. So if I was seeing judgment, then there was an understanding, or there was a call for more understanding. So that sort of, and then I realized, well, actually, these sort of trends fall under the heading of what's wrong or what's strong, falling back on the strengths-based approach. So I started to use this idea of what's happening versus what's not happening to help me in my preparation for mediation, to help me even in the session to sort of in my head guide, what could go next, and even my own role, because at one stage I remember being in a mediation and there was a request, and I really felt I didn't feel at ease with the request, so I was really resisting. Yeah. And then I thought, well, it's got nothing to do with me. If that's how that family works, then, and all I saw in my head was, I'm being judgmental.
Yeah.
How can I show more understanding to this family? And as soon as I realized that, I kind of thought, okay, and the session flowed much better, because it was me that was stopping it, because I was resisting what they were wanting to do, because I thought, that's not how it's done, but that's how this family works, so it's fine.
Yeah, I love that so much, around, what's wrong, what's strong. For me, in my mind, it's around empowering and disempowering, the positive, the not so positive side of things. And I really like, Rosemary, that you've been able to label, and I noticed that you hesitated with that word label or name. I actually think that's really helpful, because that helps us to get it clear in our mind. Then it's about what we do with that information, and it's helping people with some practical resources as well for them to sort of think about, well, is this helping the situation, or is this hindering the situation? And if it's, is it me? And that's the name of your book. It's not you, it's me. Quite often it brings stuff up in us, doesn't it? Like you were saying about that judgment, that it's what's coming up in us and what do we need to change within us that can actually have a flow-on effect to that situation. So is that the whole premise of your book? Yeah, that is amazing. I love it. I love it. And you were saying that you're at a crossroads. So you're about to launch the book. Have you launched? So it's all written. Is it all written?
It's written, and it'll be launched in early 2024.
Okay, sure.
Which is just around the corner.
I know that is just around the corner. That is just around the corner. It's really interesting when I chat with guests on the podcasts. There's a number that have written books as well, and the process that they've gone through has brought up some stuff within themselves. Yeah. What was that process like for you in writing the book?
Yeah, well, for me, it was interesting because, I wrote about being able to sort of categorize thoughts, feelings, and actions under what's wrong and what's strong.
Yeah, sure.
But I really didn't view my own work under the what's strong lens until a publisher came forward and said, I want to take you on.
Ooh la la.
And then I thought, oh, okay. Actually, maybe she maybe there is some, a value and benefit in my book. Maybe it is, better than I guess my initial opinion of it or thoughts about my own work. So it was interesting that until someone else sort of recognized it, I wasn't there yet. And then once she recognized it, then I thought, hold on, I don't need you anymore. And I know that's, people that are in publishing will sort of think, but I guess it was quite interesting. I mean, I think in the end, what happened was on the day that I was getting legal advice to try and get out of the contract, because it just wasn't working and it wasn't going anywhere. We weren't on the same page. On that day, she actually terminated the contract and I didn't have to do anything. So it was perfect. And it also for me emphasized the what's strong in my work, even though really you think it shouldn't, but it really got me even more motivated to get my book out and to do it my way as well. Because I kind of had this underlying sense that she didn't understand what I was, trying to put forward. Therefore, it was always going to be a different approach. But one really good thing that happened during that, sort of 6 months, 9 or 12 months or so that I did have a publishing contract, the publisher said that she had quite an anxious teenage daughter who benefited from the ideas and the concepts that I proposed, the tool that I proposed. And she said, would you consider running workshops in high schools? And I thought, that's a great idea. So I guess that's where I'm at now.
Wow. Isn't there, so you're writing about the concept of what's strong, but not necessarily seeing it in yourself. You would have seen some element to be able to write the book, I'm assuming.
Yes.
But maybe not that full-blown self-belief until she had said that the publisher had contacted you. So that was almost giving you maybe some validation, or for you to go, yeah, actually what I've got here is good. And then realizing, well, what I've got is good. I don't need you to help me. And that misalignment between what her expectation of you is as well. I've heard that a lot with authors and publishers, that you have to have that really be in synergy and alignment with each other, and then being able to do it your way, which I am all about, is helping people to live life their way, not doing it because of all the shoulds and expectations and stuff, but what is it that they want to do? So it sounds like you've cracked that as well, and that you're now in that place of birthing that into the world, that it's going to be, you know, your official launch early, like couple of months.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, really good. I mean, there's a lot to do.
So you're self-publishing
because
now?
I'm self-publishing.
Are you self-publishing?
I'm self-publishing. So I've had to learn what to do. And some of that process has been learning by making mistakes, or learning by then, you know, connecting with people. So I've got quite a few, you know, really talented and knowledgeable people who, you know, I can call on and who are helping me through this process. So it's been really good.
Is it worth? I'm assuming it is worth it for you to do that, because it is a lot of work, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think
it's worth it for you.
What it also did for me is, because I don't come from the publishing industry. I wasn't a writer. This just happened. So I didn't really know anything about it. But what happened for me is, as an outsider looking in, I thought, gee, the publishing industry is a little bit old-fashioned and doesn't value. This is what I think. I don't believe
this is your experience.
It doesn't value the intellectual property of an individual, or the creativity of an individual, in the same way that we would value an asset. And what happened was, I was talking to my accountant about, you know, self-publishing and this, and what he did is he said, just think of your work as the asset. And I thought, oh, okay. If you look at sort of more traditional assets, you have property or a car, or, you know, if you have to take your car for service, you're going to take it to someone who you think is reputable, who'll do a good job, who you feel confident in and you trust. And I just felt that approach was missing in the creative space, because there seems to be less value on the works, the creative works, or the intellectual property in comparison to physical property. Because I think, well, I mean, what I noticed is that, say, writers who do have a publisher, they might get 10 to 12% royalties for each book, which might be $1 or $2 for each book. And I just thought, so essentially the publisher is getting the rest. So if you're getting 10%, the publisher's getting 90%. Who would go into that arrangement voluntarily? I don't know if maybe I'm missing things. I know that there's a lot of outlay in you know, writing and
self-publishing. Yes.
And that when you have a publisher, they're investing in you. They're doing it,
and they've got their contacts, and, you know, is it? And do you know what? I don't know enough about that. So
so it's not. I don't think it's not that I think publishing is bad, and I wouldn't. Maybe, you know, if a publisher approached me and said, "Hey, this is what we're," you know, maybe I would go. But it just got me thinking about the publishing industry and how, you know, anything creative, we should, well, not should, but I just felt that I wasn't seeing it as tangible property, because it is intangible, you know, until the book. So just different.
I think that's a really interesting experience that you have around that, and especially around what you're writing about. The content of what you're writing about is you know, what's strong, and even just reflecting on that as to what maybe isn't strong in the process that you went through. So that's really interesting. And I've had a similar experience before. Like, I've invested a lot of money in my professional development over the years, and I would say the majority of that has really helped me. But there's been a few where I've spent a lot of money that I don't believe I've got the return on investment. And my kind of download of that is, I almost needed to spend the money to realize that I didn't need to spend the money. It's kind of a bit of a weird, but it was that, it was my version of what you had when the publisher said, I want to publish your work. And then you went, oh, actually, I just needed to hear that and that gave you the little injection about, you don't need them.
Yeah.
I think with a couple of the coaches I can think of, it's like, yeah, probably the advice and stuff wasn't what I needed, but I needed to spend the money to realize that I didn't need, kind of a warped way of bloody thinking about things. But
yeah,
but yeah, no, I get what you're saying there as well. So what are the crossroads are that you've spent your, a lot of years being a mediator, and through this being called to write this book, that it could be taking you in a different direction, like that mediation might not be the major focus of what you're doing.
Yes. And even though my book's based on my work as a mediator, it's sort of opening,
What's happening for you now? What are the types of things that you're thinking about in relation to that? I'm just really curious of the process that you're going through, that crossroad process.
Well, I guess part of it is also under the what's wrong and what's strong. And I think, well, I've written a book based on my mediation work, and, I'm doing, presentations and workshops based on it, but I'm not doing much mediation work. So it's like, oh.
How do you feel about that? What does that feel like for you?
Well, part of it is about, well, if I'm talking about what I learned as a mediator, but I'm not doing much work as a mediator, how can I, on what basis am I, saying, even though I've been doing it for years.
You've done it, yeah.
That's part of it. But then the other part of it is, well, it's in the past. It's there's new opportunities and new avenues, so.
Isn't that interesting, that self-talk that we have about, so I'm following this path, and it sounds to me like you've been called to write the book, that it was a response that you said you're not a writer, it kind of just came together based on your reflections on things. So this calling to do it, and then you're doing presentations around it, and even though it's tapping back into your mediation, you're not currently mediating. There's some sort of a story going on for you that I still need to be in that space of mediation. Would that be correct?
I think, and that's I guess what I'm juggling at the moment, and how much to continue or how much to accept that things are changing. That's fine. you know.
What's your process to work through that? How do you just sit with it and just trust what's coming up for you, or do you do a deliberate process to work that out?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of didn't really know what to do, and I just thought, oh, let's just see what happens, because I don't know if I'll get enough sort of work in either, one. And then I was asked to do some remote mediations, and I thought, well, this is perfect because it's quite. It works within my lifestyle and what I want to do, so I can still work on the book and what needs to be done in that space, but have an occasional, family mediation, and it's sort of under my terms as well. If I'm available, I can. It's from home. It's via Zoom, so.
And it's perfect, like what you said there. It's perfect for you, and I can think back to a similar point in my life. So I work with individuals. I do coaching with individuals, and I run programs for individuals. I also do it in the corporate space as well for organizations and individuals within the organization. And I had a long-term contract and it was probably 50% of the work that I'd been doing over a number of years. And I knew it was coming to a close. They'd extended it year by year, and they said this is, it's coming to a close at the beginning of this year. That was going to be a definite. So I knew that consciously. I was building up my private clientele, but when it came to that point where the contract ended, I just went, oh, bugger, like I haven't built up that same income that it was replacing. And I got that was a crossroads for me, going like, what am I actually going to do here? And I just sat with it, and there was part of me that went, it will be okay. Like, I will be okay. And then the conscious part in my mind would go, no, I won't, no, I won't. And that probably lasted for about a week of high level anxiety around, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then I just went, you know what? I will be okay. And I think the next day I got a phone call from a client I'd worked with a number of years ago. And he said, Catherine, we've got this contract we'd like you to come and do with our leaders in our organisation for this year. And I'm just going, thank you. And it was just that, the same sort of thing, that crossroads. And for me, the process I went through was to go, oh, I'm actually nervous about this. And I allowed myself to feel nervous. I didn't go, oh, don't be stupid. It's going to be okay. Get out of your head, blah, blah. I didn't dismiss what I was feeling. I felt it. I didn't like feeling it, but I felt it. And then I got to a point going, do you know what? I will be okay. I've always been okay. And even though I don't know the exactness of what okay is going to be, I will be okay. And when I guess, surrendered into that, within a day or two, the universe said, okay, we're ready now.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard, isn't it, when you're going through it?
And I think just reflecting on your situation, then there was a lot of focus on what's wrong.
Yes. Yep.
And then after a certain period of reflection, then it went to the strengths.
Yeah.
And I guess that's, when I say, I am highlighting, what's wrong and what's strong, and that what's strong is sort of the place to be, but it's not necessarily the place to be. It's the place to get to at some point.
Yeah.
Upon reflection, because sometimes we do need to sit in that what's wrong stage, and it's more about then thinking, oh, okay, I've sat here and now I'm going to move forward, or even just reflecting on past situations. I did that way. Okay, in the future, I will work on that. So I'm not saying you have to be in what's strong the whole time, because that's impossible.
I agree with that too. And it's often when I talk about, that empowered mindset and I focus on happiness and living a life that you love. That doesn't mean that I'm happy every minute of the day. And that doesn't mean that I don't go through adversity. Like, I've had some really icky stuff happen, but it's how I respond to it. And I think what's wrong, what's strong is part of that response strategy. And it's about going, is this helping or is this hindering? And if it's hindering, in what way is it hindering? And what do I want instead? And how can I focus on that? So it's a process, isn't it? It's not just it's not as much as people want this, magic wand that's going to fix things immediately. It's a tool, and it sounds like it's a fantastic tool for people to be able to access. Where can people get the book now, or do we have to wait till you're launching it?
Yeah, not yet, but if you go to my website or social media, then there'll be updates and things there. So you can join the mailing list.
Yeah, beautiful. And we'll have all your details in the show notes about your website and social media as well. Have you got a big launch planned?
Yes, yeah. I'm actually working on a book tour.
Yeah.
So I'll be, going to libraries and bookstores, definitely on the East Coast, maybe even further. So,
I've got it. That sounds great. I've got a couple of the podcast hosts. Letitia has just done or in the process of her book launch. Emma Bowd from last year has written a number of children's books and has done lots of book tours as well. So that's going to be an exciting part for you. And if you keep us posted, that for those who are listening, follow along Happiness Hive, but also follow along Rosemary, and to find out about the book and how we can access it. There's a couple of other things that I want to ask you. What fills your cup? What fills your cup outside of work and writing?
Yeah, I guess it's anything that helps maintain the balance. And so my what maintains my balance is, or readjusts the balance when I am out of balance, is, you know, getting outdoors.
Yeah.
I really like being outdoors, and also connecting with friends and making sure, because sometimes I find we just get so busy that we don't make time to be social and just do things where you don't have to think. So anything that I don't have to think about, and also anything that helps me feel good about myself. And I know that sounds a bit, but yeah, because I find it when I have things that make me see what's strong in myself and my own strengths, that builds my resilience and ability to manage when things don't go well, or when there's a lot happening, you know. And that could be as simple as, you know, writing reflections, gratitude. Even I love making to-do lists, you know, like little things like that that just make me, oh, okay, I've done what I had to do, or I've done most, and I'll do the rest tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. Just the little things, even cooking, you know, just.
Are you an good Italian cook?
Yes. But I've sort of haven't prioritized it for a while.
No. I'm
Very
envious
basic.
of people. I'm envious of people, just any cooking ability. I have none. I have zero. No, I don't have zero. I don't have a lot.
We have some, yeah.
But isn't that interesting? Kind of, what you were saying there too, Rosemary, about looking at what's strong within us. I think it's very easy for us not to. So even the comment that I made about cook, like, I really am very admire people who can cook, because I think I was busy talking in line when they handed out the any sort of domestic kind of skills when they were handing those out. But isn't it interesting for me to go, I've got zero? That's not true at all. That's not true at all. And it's sometimes those throwaway lines that we say about ourselves, and it's just like, oh, actually, let's change the narrative around that.
Yeah,
I think. So
because our overthinking and our self-talk perpetuates those narratives.
Yeah.
So it can take a while to unlearn those.
Yes.
Because we have to just practice a new narrative.
Yeah. And even just then, like, bringing that to my attention is to go, you know, maybe I don't need to say that anymore, that I don't have any cooking skills.
And maybe it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, there'll be people who can cook, there'll be people that can't. There'll be people who can cook really, really well. Yes. Like, it doesn't matter.
It's interesting, isn't it? Even when we were off air, we were sort of having a little bit of a chat about some of the things that we overthink about, and some of them probably a bit like we didn't see it in each other, but we were mentioning things, and so we focus on things through our own eyes that others probably don't even notice.
Yeah. Or wouldn't even put much emphasis on anyway.
Yes. And it's interesting why we do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Rosemary, I told you the time would go quick.
Yes,
I told you the time would go super quick. So thank you very much. We'll have all your details in the show notes so people can connect with you, and we eagerly await when your book is ready to launch, and to support you in that journey as well, in however we can, just to be able to let people know that the book's ready to get in their hot little hands.
Awesome.
So thank you very much for that. And also thank you to everybody for listening. As always, come and join us in the Happiness Hive community and be the first to find out what's happening. Sending out a good old-fashioned newsletter with lots of juicy love and inspiration. So hugs and happiness to everyone. Bye.
Bye.